Hello, hello. I think we need to try to get together. The few of us come to the first row, please, and then we'll start. So the speaker, please come to the podium and start sitting. Okay. Yeah. Hello, hello. Can we check if we have the people online connected as well? Can you confirm to me who is connected online?
Good morning, Paula. Good morning, colleagues. Can you hear me well?
Yes, who is it?
This is Roman Michalak from UNEC.
UNEC, okay. UNEC is connected. What about Olga Andreeva?
Yes, hello, dear colleagues. My name is Olga Andreeva. I'm from UNCCD.
You're
Yes,
connected.
I'm connected.
Excellent. All right. All right. Who else is missing? Ben, please come to the podium. Who else from the speakers is missing? Please come to join the podium. And the others, if you can move and come closer, that would be nice. To the front line. Okay. So let's start. Okay, because we have a hard stop at 1. So thank you very much. Welcome to this session on resilient landscape. As you know, this is a very nice follow-up to the session before on adaptation. Yes. So to the session on adaptation, and we have seen a lot of data in terms of the issues related to land degradation and how we can actually reverse land degradation and trying to make this land productive again. So today we are going to talk about resilient landscape strategies, innovation, and partnership. We have a mix of speakers from the countries and from international organizations. And I will try also to ask some questions. But before, we have a presentation from Ashwarathu Abade from the World Bank, and then we're followed by one from UNCCD. So let me ask to Ashwarathu to come to the podium.
Thank you, Paula. I will make a brief presentation about Resilient. The purpose of the presentation is just to give you an idea where we are with Resilient in Central Asia. So, as you can see, the Resilient project is being implemented in Central Asian countries. I wouldn't say much about why we need to have this Resilient in Central Asia countries. You heard from the previous speakers the importance of land restoration to tackle the impacts of climate change in Central Asia, to tackle the impacts of land degradation. So I am not going to spend too much time on the justification. Next slide, please. So I can see also on my screen is also in Russia. So while this is happening, I would like to, I don't know whether this is the first slide or not. If you really return back to the first slide, it's not the first slide. I would like to probably, next slide, please. And yeah, here again, can you go down? Yeah, so the first important thing that we need to know is that land degradation is affecting the economic growth of Central Asian countries. We have seen yesterday figures from 3 to 11% affecting the GDP of the countries. Overall, we have an average of 4% the impact on the GDP because of land degradation. Okay, next slide. We have seen also that the land degradation because of the sand and dust storms is affecting the air quality. It is also necessary to know that it's not only affecting agricultural production, it's also affecting the air quality of Central Asian countries. Next slide. It's also causing natural hazards. Again, I don't want to say too much about it. You heard about mud flows, landslides, flooding in Central Asia. It's mainly related also with land degradation. Again, the impact of land degradation in Central Asia is related with also with the landscape, with the nature of the terrain. We have seen, we know that in Kyrgyz Republic and also Tajikistan, about more than 90% of the land landscape is mountainous. So that is really ideal situation for land degradation. So the problem of land degradation in Central Asia also goes beyond the Central Asian countries. In the morning, we have seen in the IPCC report that the impact is also reaching out to other countries. So we have to address it. Next slide. So how? The World Bank started to first understand the problem just, by doing different kinds of analytics. You may probably go to some of the disclosed reports. We have done some studies on the level of land degradation, how it is affecting the economy, as I tried to mention earlier, and also trying to understand where are the places where this land degradation is happening. Next slide. So important is that now we started with raised land. Next slide. Raised land project. Again, next slide. I'm sorry, this is difficult to manage from here. So raised land in Central Asia, informed by various studies as well as also interaction with the government, is aiming to manage land sustainably in all the Central Asian countries. Next slide. Next slide. So as I said, the areas affected by land degradation have been identified, particularly in the interest of raised land, transboundary areas where land degradation is severe, which we consider as hotspots for land degradation. These are the areas targeted by raised land. We have shown some of the slides showing the level of land degradation in these countries. Next slide. So we have now 4 ongoing projects in Kazakhstan with a portfolio of 6 million, with an envelope of 6 million US dollar. A project is under implementation. In Tajikistan, 45 million. In Kyrgyzstan is about to start very soon. It's also about 45 million. And in Uzbekistan with 153 million. So all these are working on land restoration in various ways. Okay, next slide. So what are the most important interventions? I mean, Paula alluded to this in the morning. We are doing different kinds of activities. We have ecotourism, we have agroforestry, we have tree planting, we have conservation activities in protected areas. All these are contributing to improve first the land and also the livelihood of communities living around these areas. Next slide. So these are some of the activities I mentioned. Next slide. So you can see that some of the examples of restoring land, particularly in difficult terrain like this, in mountainous landscape. Next slide. Again, it's not only doing physical works on the ground, but we would like to also use the modern technology, latest technology, to connect the forest degradation with the IT technology, with information technology. So with the help of the Korean Trust Fund, it is going to be implemented both in Kyrgyzstan as well as in Uzbekistan. So monitoring activities of forest degradation in the future will be done using using IT. Next slide. So again, we can pass this. These are some of the indicators to see the achievement of the project. Next slide. I need to mention about the green wager. So Paula mentioned this yesterday that we are going to start in Uzbekistan. We have it also in Ethiopia, where you provide cash or food for people working in land rehabilitation. This worked really very well, and you see this kind of initiative is happening in the name of green wager. We will see the impact of this activity when we started in Uzbekistan. Okay, next slide. So these are the indicators, as I said, number of land areas rehabilitated as a result of the project. So the last slide should be this one. Okay, continue. So these are the expected outputs when the project is, started to be implemented. We have already started to see some results in Kazakhstan because they started earlier, little bit in Tajikistan, but in Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, as I said, we haven't yet started, but this is the kind of expectation we would like to have. Last slide. So we would like to have this kind of changes from the baseline, which is really degraded, to a landscape where area is covered with vegetation. So I apologize, maybe I rushed this presentation, but in summary, what we wanted to say is that we need to do quite a lot of activities to tackle climate change, land degradation in Central Asia. Raisland is one of the projects contributing to that. And Raisland can be successful with your contribution, with your understanding of the level of problems, the problem in Central Asia. We encourage you really to actively participate in this initiative. And I really wish all the best to Raisland. Over to you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashfaratio. We are very happy that to see how we have been able to really focus on transboundary issues and have a regional program made of national projects, for which what we always say is the sum of individual country projects, the total is more than the sum of its part. And that's really the beauty of doing a regional program and dealing with issues of land degradation, but also of security, as we heard in the morning. Because at the end of the day, we are trying to work on the resilience of infrastructure, the resilience of people, and the resilience of ecosystems. So thank you very much for that, Ashfaratio. And now let me pass the word to UNCCD. That is going to have a presentation to Ms. Dr. Olga Andreeva, Program Officer at UNCCD, who will make a presentation on combating land degradation in Central Asia, integrated approach, also with a focus on migration. Olga, over to you. I know.
I'm going to leave your space. You can see.
No, you're not. Olga, can you hear us? We heard you before. She was connected online. Yes, Olga, we hear you, but we don't see a presentation yet. You have 10 minutes, if possible. We don't hear you yet. Oh, you don't have good internet? Okay, Olga will try later again. So while... Olga, let's try later if you get a better internet. Okay? So right now, while we wait for Olga to get a better internet, let me move to our distinguished panel. And let me start with a few questions. Let me start with the representative of Uzbekistan, Mr. Abdulwakid Zukaldalohev, from the Forest Agency of Uzbekistan, focal point for the Resilient Landscape Project, for UNCCD, for many other very important international treaty. So, Abdulwakid, I don't know if you want to come to speak here or you speak from the floor, but the idea is, what is your agency going to do in terms of resilient landscape, and how do you combine biodiversity, forests, sand and dust storms into one single program. So what are your next actions on that? Over to you.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, distinguished panelists and participants. The Resilient project in Uzbekistan is likely focused on enhancing the resilience and sustainability of the region, potentially in the face of environmental challenges such as climate change impacts, sand and dust storms, and nature-based solutions refer to actions that leverage the benefits of natural resources and processes to address societal challenges. We may say Resilient project totally focused and designed with nature-based solutions. This in ecosystem restoration, for example, rehabilitating degraded ecosystems such as forests, grasslands, to enhance their ability to provide services like flood regulation, water purification, and carbon sequestration. Just Mr. Ashvarachu Abate presented that the main challenges of the region is landslides and floods, sand and dust storms. This is our project mainly focused to combat to these challenges. In ecosystem-based adaptation, utilizing natural systems to help communities adapt to the impacts of climate change, such as using shelter belt trees to protect against sand and dust storms. This could involve restoring degraded ecosystems, sustainable management of natural resources, and using green infrastructure. And in sustainable land management, adopting agricultural and land use practices that work in harmony with natural systems such as agroforestry. And in this field, we are engaging local community. And sustainable water management also, the main action in our project, which is within this project we are implementing nature-based solutions for water storage, natural water retention measures. From degraded landscape during the rainwater reservoirs will receive a lot of tom soils, for example. And creation forest areas in the basins of rivers will contribute to have a clean water to reservoirs. And in, as you mentioned, problems in biodiversity conservation. And in this sphere, we are going to protect and enhance biodiversity in the region to maintain crucial ecosystem services like food security and climate regulation. We are going to establish protected areas, wildlife corridors, transboundary corridors, and sustainable use of natural resources. In disaster risk reduction, also leveraging nature-based solutions like restoration, slope stabilization, and green space to reduce the impact of natural disaster like floods, landslides, droughts, and heat waves. For the implementation of this action, we are going to create 15,000 mountain forests, for example, in the water basins. And last but least, community-based natural resource management, engaging local communities in the stewardship and decision-making around natural resources. Within Resilient Uzbekistan project, we are going to finance innovative projects which will be implemented through local community with ownership and long-term sustainability of nature-based solutions. The key would be to align these nature-based approaches with the broader goals of the resilient program, which likely include enhancing community resilience, improving livelihoods, and ensuring environmental sustainability in Uzbekistan and whole in Central Asia. Effective implementation would require collaboration between governments, communities, and relevant stakeholders. To implement this kind of actions within the project, already issued resolution of the President from March. So now we have a good roadmaps, and already we are started to implement resilient project in Uzbekistan. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdulwakid. Congratulations to Uzbekistan. And the main point that I can get from your observation is how integrated the project is, dealing with many different issues. And in general, I would say that maybe where we need to work more is to include more biodiversity. I know we have protected areas, but biodiversity in the restoration of the rangelands, of the landscape, of the grazing land, and also to include more carbon payments is the future for the future. So I want to leave that for your thinking. So we're already thinking about a second phase eventually. So but congratulations again. And now let me also move to another of the resilient projects, this time from the Kyrgyz Republic. And I'm going to ask to my colleague Aidai Bayaleva if she can tell us a little bit about the work in the Kyrgyz Republic. I want also to thank you very much for coming to the podium, because she lost her voice, and so she will use the microphone, but you know, she's making a huge effort to be here with us. So thank you, Aidai. Over to you.
Thank you, Paula. Good afternoon, dear participants. I apologize for my funny voice. I will talk briefly about Resilient project in the Kyrgyz Republic, which will soon become effective, and we will start implementation of this project, which is part of big regional resilient program. So climate change indeed make us to look comprehensively to the sustainable landscapes and restoration of landscapes. In the Kyrgyz Republic, which is mountainous country and has a lot of climate-induced hazards, for instance, about 40% of all hazards in the country is due to mud flows and floods. And the occurrence of these events has been increasing. So with this view, the project was designed through the lens of climate change-induced hazards and resilience of landscapes and people against these hazards. So when we think about mitigation, for instance, from mud flows and floods events, we think about like improvement of monitoring and forecast of mud flows and floods, and then for better informing of solutions, any technical solutions. It can be engineering solutions like traditional gray intervention, like embankments of rivers, which in our countries are transboundary rivers. And we think also of nature-based solutions that can help mitigating at least a bit, mitigating impacts of mud flows. If we plant if we select also based on scientific approach, if we select plants and trees with deep root systems, this would help to stabilize slope, as our colleague from Uzbekistan also mentioned, and also have a bit of soil retention when these mud flows happen. And the third thing that we think while approaching this comprehensive landscape management, we think of communities that live in these areas and that are vulnerable. Because so with the government, the bank is working towards improvement and establishment of national mud flow and floods monitoring system. also unified national glacier monitoring system. These are major two components in monitoring. And then another activity is this, what I mentioned, nature-based solutions with Academy of Science, with Minister of Emergency, with Minister of Environment and Forestry. And the third component is green vouchers that was mentioned by Asferacio, when communities are involved in planting trees and they are paid for this work. Also, we have this approach of one village, one product. Maybe some of you know about this approach. This component is to help diversifying economic activities of the mountains communities, to reduce pressure on the pastures, for instance, because we see that in our countries, because of overgrazing, pasture degradation, then the impacts of mud flows are more severe. And another issue that we see is, especially in upstream countries, is sedimentation in transboundary river, which affect not only the quality of agricultural land, which will get flooded, but also can affect capacity of reservoirs or riverbeds capacity. So briefly, I think I tried to explain about this project, just the major outcome that we are trying to use very latest technological solutions, also in monitoring, on IT, artificial intelligence, try to solve the problems comprehensively in our countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Haidai. I think that it's extremely interesting to see the different entry points in this resilient program. So Kyrgyz Republic has as an entry point disaster risk management and the use of green and green infrastructure together, plus the focus on glaciers. So it's incredibly interesting. I hear that we have also our two countries online that are part of this Resilient Landscape program. So I would like to give the words, if we manage, to Solijon Mirzoev, project coordinator for the Resilient program of Tajikistan. Solijon, are you there?
Здравствуйте.
Yes. Over to you, Solijon. Yes.
Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте, Павла.
Здравствуйте.
Здравствуйте, дорогие участники семинара. Я хочу сказать, что проект Резиланта уже 1,5 года работает в Республике Таджикистан. И у нас есть конкретные достижения по этому программе. Дело в том, что проект Резилант у нас работает в 10 районах Таджикистана. И эти районы являются климатически очень суровыми, можно сказать. И летом у нас температура достигает до 60 градусов, а в зимнее время до минус 50 градусов. В настоящее время мы организовали совместное управление лесами, мы набрали людей по совместному управлению лесами, и мы организовали группу пользователей. В этом сезоне мы постановили 820 гектаров лесопосадок. По естественному восстановлению у нас 2200 гектаров естественного восстановления лесопосадок. Какие трудности у нас? Дело в том, что очень трудно привлекать население для работы в этих лесных хозяйствах. Мы принципе, сделали вообще оригинальное решение. Мы дали аренду тем людям, которые берут 1 гектар фисташковых деревьев, дали 20 гектаров лесов фисташковых для того, чтобы они работали в этих районах. Расстояние от сельской местности до восстанавливающих земель у нас от 50 до 100 километров. И поэтому очень важно, чтобы привлекать население, чтобы они были заинтересованы работать в этих угодьях. Второе очень важное решение, которое у нас есть, это большое поголовье скота, которое в зимнее время она является, территория, которую мы улучшаем, является зимними пастбищами скота для животных. И поэтому необходимо, чтобы вот эти земли, которые мы даем по пастбища и земли лесного хозяйства, они были привлечены со стороны вот этих лесопользователей, пастбищепользователей. Они как бы чувствуют собственность этих земель.
В настоящее время по проекту создано 50 групп пастбища пользователей и создано 120 лесопользователей, групп лесопользователей. И они сейчас работают по всему Таджикистану, по 10 вот этим районам. Очень хорошо, что в этом году у нас дождливая погода, весна довольно длинная, и результаты у нас где-то 85% схожести деревьев. Необходимо в дальнейшем поддерживать вот эти лесопосадки. Это необходимо их обеспечить водой и все другие мероприятия. Спасибо. Это было коротко о наших достижениях по проекту.
Thank you very much, Salim John, to giving us the main highlights from the Resiland Tajikistan project that as you can see, is already a little bit more advanced because it has been under implementation for 2 years, so is paving the way to these important regional collaborations with the other countries and to very important initial results, which I hope we can, in this case, expand maybe, as we were discussing in these days. Landscape restoration can be also important for reducing sedimentation in hydropower dams. And as you know, Tajikistan has a very important hydropower cascade of dams, starting from Rogun to Nurek to Bypass, etc. So maybe that is going to be the future of our work, to work also on that, using landscape restoration to reduce sedimentation and give a longer life to hydropower, as we were discussing in the session before. But now let me turn again to one more country, Turkmenistan. I think we have Dr. Pirli from the Institute of Desert online. Let's see if he's there. Just short presentation, 5 minutes, if possible. Dr. Pirli, over to you. I think that the internet has some problems. He was there before. Let me just summarize for him the work that we are doing together, because we are very proud that we have all the 5 countries in this Resilient program. And with the Institute of Desert, we are doing a very important analysis on the landscape restoration opportunities in Turkmenistan. And it's all done through this ecosystem modeling and a lot of data that is being analyzed. It has been a fantastic collaboration with the Institute of Desert, and I really hope that once we have the results, we will be able to share them with you, maybe at the UNCCD COP this year in Saudi Arabia, and then that maybe from there some possibilities of having projects as well with GEF or the adaptation funds or with other partners also in Turkmenistan, so that also Turkmenistan will have a real investment on the ground. But with that, let me know later on if he is able to connect. I think he is there. Okay, so Dr. Pirli, over to you, but 5 minutes.
Okay, just a minute. I will call him. He's waiting for us. Just a minute. Sorry for that.
Are we succeeding? Sorry about it, but yes, the Regia. Okay, Dr. Pirli, very nice to see you. Thank you very much. Over to you. You have 5 minutes.
Добрый день, участники сессии. Рад приветствовать вас из Туркменистана, от Национального института пустынь. Тогда я начинаю свой доклад. Слышно меня, да?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
Национальная стратегия Туркменистана по изменению климата, утвержденная постановлением президентом от 15 июня 2012 года. Соответственно, постановление президента Туркменистана от 11 января 2013 года принята национальная лесная программа Туркменистана на 2013-2020 годы. В соответствии с этой программой на национальном и международном уровне проведены важные мероприятия национального и международного значения в целях сохранения окружающей среды и обеспечения экологического благополучия в нашей стране. Основными направлениями национальной политики Туркменистана является сохранение природных богатств, их рациональное использование, внедрение экологически чистых новых технологий, внедрение зеленой экономики, внедрение цифровой системы, обеспечение экологической безопасности. Туркменистан активно участвует в международной деятельности в целях координации усилий мирового сообщества по созданию благоприятных условий для жизни на Земле при сохранении его здорового экологического состояния. Туркменистан является участником многих важнейших природоохранных конвенций ООН, представляет свои инициативы и предложения на международном уровне, чтобы внести свой достойный вклад в решение таких важных проблем, как изменение климата, эффективное использование земельных и водных ресурсов, борьба с опустыниванием, предотвращение засоления земель, сохранение уникального и неповторимого биологического разнообразия в стране, охрана морской среды Каспия, снижение вредного последствия Аральского моря и многие другие вопросы. Аральская трагедия – это, к сожалению, трагедия мирового масштаба, и нашу страну она не обошла. Как результат, это распространение соляной пыли. По ее распространению были выделены 5 зон. Первая зона – места подъема солевой пыли со дна Аральского моря. Годовое количество соляной пыли на гектар составляет 6 тонн во второй зоне, 2 тонны в третьей зоне, 800 килограмм в четвертой зоне и 200 килограмм в пятой зоне. Дашаузский вилаят Туркменистана находится в 4-й и преимущественно в пятой засоленной зоне. В засоленной зоне также Даргантинский этрап Лебабского вилаята Туркменистана. Он находится в пятой зоне. По этой причине лесомассивные работы являются одним из основных направлений деятельности в Дашаузском вилаяте и северных районах Лебабского вилаята в рамках мероприятий, направленных на снижение негативного воздействия и улучшение экологической обстановки в регионе. Лесная программа предусматривает развитие международного сотрудничества в области лесного хозяйства и внедрение передового опыта в этой сфере. Предполагается продолжить работы по лесоразведению в зашусливых районах Аральского моря, усилить государственную охрану лесов за счет улучшения экономического стимулирования и привлечения финансовых ресурсов, создать условия для предотвращения деградации почв, улучшения земледелия и пастбищ, сохранить биологическое разнообразие. Вот все, что касается первого вопроса. Там, конечно, затрагивались саксауловые леса. Создание искусственных саксауловых лесов в Туркменистане продолжаются усиленным темпом, особенно я вот упоминал север Дашаузского вилаята, где на возвышенности Бетенда где-то посажены 20 тысяч гектаров пустынных растений, в том числе и саксаула. И Туркменистан приветствует международное сотрудничество с Узбекистаном по созданию вот этих саксауловых лесов и других пустынных растений. Это что касается вот первого вопроса. Что касается второго вопроса, по программе «Резилиент-К» в плане усиления регионального сотрудничества сотрудниками Национального института уже ведутся определенные работы в этом направлении. Проводятся базовые аналитические исследования по теме картирования возможностей восстановления ландшафта в Туркменистане с использованием методологии оценки возможностей восстановления РОАМ. Более подробно о ходе этих работ будет доложено исполнителями позднее. Со своей стороны хочу отметить, что данную работу следует продолжать для сохранения экологического благополучия во всем мире, и в регионе, и во всем мире. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pili. I'm glad the connection worked, and thank you for giving us an overview of what the Desert Institute is doing in Turkmenistan. And finally, I hear, I haven't heard it for a couple of days, the word saksau, so important for every one of us in this region, and also actually for talking about the combination of land degradation and biodiversity, another very important element. And the third, talking about also the Caspian Sea. A new program that we are working on in terms of landscape is a Caspian Sea project together with Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, and Azerbaijan. And we really want to make sure this is not going to become the next, tragedy in terms of the water declining. So thank you very much for mentioning that as well. And the work we are doing together on the landscape restoration Rome studies. So now let me see if by any chance Kazakhstan is also connected, because we are missing them. It's the only country. I don't know if we were able to connect at the end, or if somebody is here in the, no? Okay, so we have sort of now done the, the country part, and now let's move to the partners. Let me double check again if UNCCD Olga is online, if she now has a better connection. Olga?
Yes, I'm online, Paula. Thank you so much. And I will ask my colleagues to run the presentation.
Thank you. And Olga, if I can ask you to take maximum 10 minutes.
Okay. I will continue in Russian. Здравствуйте, дорогие коллеги. Я постараюсь очень кратко донести основные соображения по поводу деградации земель. Я, правда, не уверена, что это та презентация, которая нужна. Следующий слайд, пожалуйста. Нет, к сожалению, это не та презентация. Если можно, я без презентации сделаю короткое сообщение. Сегодня уже много подчеркивалось о проблеме. Можно удалить презентацию, пожалуйста. Сегодня уже много подчеркивалось о проблеме деградации земель в Центральной Азии. Я не буду много на этом останавливаться. Хочу отметить, что Центральная Азия является одним из самых уязвимых регионов по отношению и к изменению климата, и деградации земель. И по оценкам портала UNCCD, около 20% территории подвержены сильной деградации земель во всем регионе Центральной Азии. И это затрагивает около 30% населения. Издержки на стоимость деградации земель возрастает до 6 миллиардов долларов ежегодно в регионе. Но надо отметить, что затраты на предотвращение деградации земель гораздо дешевле. Они стоят в 5 раз дешевле. И сегодня об этом уже много говорилось, что проактивные действия, они позволят нам предотвратить и сократить наши затраты на восстановление земель. Причем надо отметить, что деградация земель является коренной проблемой нестабильности и конфликтов и вызывает социально-экономические проблемы. Поскольку я хотела в своем докладе подчеркнуть именно связь деградации земель, изменения климата и миграции, такое исследование было проведено под эгидой UNCCD, и было показано, что деградация земель является одним из самых главных триггеров, который вызывает вот этот процесс миграции населения. Это четко прослеживается на локальном уровне. Конечно, в целом миграция населения – это очень сложная, комплексная проблема, которая вызывается как притягивающими факторами, так и отталкивающими факторами. И это вызывается не только природными и климатическими условиями, но и, естественно, обусловленное социально-экономическими условиями в странах, и все это действует и на локальном, и на региональном, и на глобальном уровне. Это огромное сочетание всех этих факторов. Но, тем не менее, деградация земель и изменение климата являются мощнейшим триггером, поскольку продуктивность земель падает, и это тут же сказывается на благосостоянии людей, и таким образом вот эта цепочка запускается, к сожалению, неблагоприятных последствий. И, как сегодня уже отмечалось, расширение и увеличение практик устойчивого землепользования, именно те практики, которые пропагандируются, сейчас применяются в рамках проекта «Резилент», они позволят не только сохранить экосистемы и восстановить землю, но и в то же время создать так называемые зеленые рабочие места, которые будут, в свою очередь, останавливать этот процесс миграции, тем самым задерживая рабочие руки и светлые головы на местах с тем, чтобы они могли найти работу уже у себя в стране. Завершая, хочу сказать, что все вопросы, конечно, будут освещаться в рамках конференции сторон, которая состоится в Баль-Рияде в декабре этого года. Поэтому все партнерские организации, естественно, приглашаются поделиться своим опытом и знаниями по распространению вот этих наилучших практик, как они работают. И, конечно, я вас приглашаю 17 июня отметить вместе с нами 30-летие Конвенции ООН по борьбе с опустыниванием, которая является голосом Земли и, конечно, делает очень большой вклад в сохранение земель на всей планете. Спасибо большое. Извините за накладки, с презентации.
Thank you very much. Actually, really appreciated because you brought some new elements into the discussion, which is all these issues of land degradation and migration. which is so important, but also reminded us about June 17, which would all celebrate the day to combat land degradation and desertification. So it's a very important partner for the resilient landscape and for all the programs we are doing here in Central Asia, UNCCD. Thank you very much. Now let me move to my distinguished panel that is here. So let me start with Yvette Zenina, Natural Resource Officer for Central Asia and Turkey from FAO. So Yvette, the question for you is, what are some innovative financing mechanisms and partnership models that have been effective in supporting forest and landscape restoration in Central Asia? And how can we scale them up and replicate them? Over to you.
Thank you so much, dear Paola. Basically, I would like to give some examples that we have in FAO as the successful projects. So one of them is Kastilem 2 that will finish this year, and this was the regional project for Central Asia, and but however it didn't include the nature of the transboundary issues that of course we all know is very urgent in Central Asia. In February 2024, Jeff approved our next program, and this is kind of a unique regional approach under Jeff 8 cycle, but together with this regional cooperation. So basically it has two components, regional components. Two regional components, and they are focusing on the Rafshan Basin and on Amur Darya Basin. The program will be around $30 million, and $30 million, and it will have the national projects, child projects in each country of Central Asia except Tajikistan. So basically we want to include and focus on this transboundary issues, integrated approach in the water management, and also to include some these financial instruments and partnerships that you mentioned before. That is why I would like to say that it's very important, first of all, whatever you're doing in your country to align with the national strategies and the documents that you produce and submit under the Paris Agreement, for example, in the NDCs or BTRs, on national communication, because of course to institutionalize this resilient and sustainable agri-food systems in terms of the landscape restoration is important, and to attract the climate finance, because of course if you mainstream these activities to the world community in the documents to be submitted to UNFCCC, it's easier from the development organization or to understand for development organizations what are the country's priorities. And of course, like if we, not of course, but we also plan to build up on this Jeff program and to develop GCF project. I also talk about it for several years, but of course all the donors that require development organizations that require some time. So last year I was talking that we prepared this Jeff regional program. Now I say that it was approved in February, and then the next step will be of course to have this synergy between Jeff and GCF, because Jeff usually is focusing more on the institutional setup, on the national strategies alignment, and the field practices, of course, like pilots of or demonstration of different successful technologies or innovations, whereas GCF is focusing more on, or like let's say, can bring this focus on development of different and promotion of different climate finance instruments, and can be agricultural insurance or blended finance or any other cooperation with the multilateral development banks. So this is our goal, basically, to have this integrated approach to support countries to mainstream these needs for the capacity building, for the climate finance, or for the technologies into the document that they submit to the world community as mitigation targets or as adaptation targets. And also to promote different technologies, as we were saying before, like water-saving technologies, and to have this integrated approach between different multifocal areas of GEF. So it's not only land, but it's also biodiversity and climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yvette. And I think that this new program that you're starting is extremely compatible with Resilient, so we need to really try to look at the synergies among our two programs. But I noticed that probably your program is working more on the climate finance. We are not there yet, so we can learn from you to do more on this climate and financial mechanism. So thank you very much. By the way, that she has a very nice video that we will project at the end of this session for people that want to stay here just 6 minutes, but it's a very nice video. So now I think we go back online. Marius, let me know if Mr. Roman Michalak, Program Manager from UNICE FAO, is online and is connected. Roman? Well, actually, you were, yes, I heard you.
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Okay, excellent. So let me, okay, here you are. Thank you very much for waiting patiently for your turn and for not having any problem. So let me ask you a question. Can you discuss some successful cases of collaboration with Central Asia in promoting resilient forest landscape? And what lessons have been learned? UNICE is a very important partner here in Central Asia. Some of the most important pieces of analytical work come from you. So over to you, Roman.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you, Paula. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, I hear myself silent. Thank you, and of course, I was happy to follow this meeting. So I got a lot of information, very interesting information. Answering your question, my example would be a little bit different due to the nature of work of our organization that would relate more to policy development and strategic planning. And now it's obvious, also we heard from this discussion today from many participants that afforestation and even landscape restoration are much more than physical tree planting, and that effective landscape restoration require effective policy frameworks, in particular engaging all related sectors and stakeholders. Therefore, together with countries, UNECE, together with FAO, developed national policy guiding principles for forest landscape restoration. And we don't have time, of course, to go into detail. So just let me highlight that these guiding principles include 7 thematic and 8 cross-cutting principles, each of them with further specific guidance, covering the whole landscape restoration.
Roman, there is a little bit of a sounds, weird echo, weird sounds.
Identification through strengthening governance, strengthening stakeholder participation, communication, implementation, strategic planning, and ending at monitoring and evaluation. So, for example, the principle or national forest landscape restoration strategy calls for going beyond extension or even simple regeneration or restoration of areas. And it also calls on not forgetting about and protecting of existing in terms of forests in particular, and other green areas, including biodiversity, including climate, but also other functions that forest serve. Then the next part of this principle recommends restoration and afforestation, enlargement, but in compatibility with existing areas. The third part calls for going beyond forest areas and addressing the complete nature of restoration, and also including agriculture areas, infrastructure, and not forgetting about urbanized areas, and developing these plans in a comprehensive way. So that was just one example. I later maybe send a link to this restoration. So in conclusion, what we believe, what we hope, these guiding principles before in-field work, practical work starts, should first provide a comprehensive framework covering all landscapes, then to help integrate economic goals with social, biodiversity and climate ones. Then it should also help, they should also help to involve all stakeholders, addressing in particular rural communities and other groups, vulnerable groups in this process. In the next, we hope that this implementation to provide basis for wide and long-term planning. We heard about many projects. This guidance call for creation of the framework that would help to put these projects in this framework. So in the end, it should adjust implementation rate to available resources to ensure compatibility of activities projects to long-term plans, and in the end also increase funding opportunities for countries. Finally, this strategic approach should also ensure the whole sustainability of forest sector, to link project-based work with general development, and what is, I think we also heard already today, should also support development of national capital. Without that, all this work will be really challenged. So this application, these principles were already tested in Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan. We also, beyond the region, work with Moldova, and we plan to continue with countries in their implementation. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any question, of course, I'm available. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roman. The role of these guidelines are extremely important for all the countries, so we will try to make sure that even in the Resilient Project program in all our countries, we are going to really use them. And I want to say that also from UNICE, one thing that we learned is that if you have to deal with resilient landscape, is not only in agricultural land, in forest land, but also in urban. And there is a lot of emphasis now in UNICE about urban trees, and we heard this morning from IPCC, right, that this is the next frontier of the landscape. So we are also in very initial stage of working with cities like Almaty. Right now there is a session on urban greening, and those are cities looking at trees and the role of trees in urban and in creating biological corridor inside the cities, maybe connecting to protected areas, etc. I'm mentioning this because it's part of the Resilient program, because Almaty is a city that is on the border of many countries. So this is how we were able to include it, and we should probably do more. And that's something I also learned from the work with UNICE. So thank you very much, Roman. And now let me move to the podium again and ask to Mr. Alexander Nikolayenko, Senior Regional Advisor of GIZ, to give us a little bit of some highlights on regional collaboration. GIZ is also one of the major sponsors of this climate change conference, organizer together with Karek. So Alexander, so how can regional cooperation and knowledge sharing be strengthened to address common challenges related to landscape degradation, climate change here in Central Asia? And what role do international organizations play in all that? Over to you, Alexander.
Большое спасибо, Павла. Ну, GIZ имеет очень большой опыт работы в странах Центральной Азии, как на национальном, так и на региональном уровне. В частности, у нас сейчас реализуются как минимум несколько программ, которые связаны с вопросом устойчивого землепользования или интегрированного землепользования. У нас есть программа «Айлюка», интегрированного землепользования в странах Центральной Азии, работает во всех странах и на региональном уровне. Также она больше посвящает свою работу по предотвращению деградации земель, работа на национальном уровне с законодательством, подготовка национальных проектов и так далее, и пилотирование в том числе. Очень много осуществляется. У нас есть очень много примеров достаточно успешной работы на земле с точки зрения устойчивого землепользования, в том числе в лесах. Есть программа «Эко-Орал», которая работает на две страны, в Приоралье, Казахстан и Узбекистан. Эта программа больше направлена на поиск и подготовку зеленых проектов с точки зрения макрофинансирования их и для того, чтобы обеспечить их финансовую устойчивость для дальнейшей реализации проектов на месте уже, собственно, местными партнерами, бизнесменами, которые эту работу могут дальше вести и поддерживать с точки зрения того, чтобы эта финансовая устойчивость именно была их работы. Кроме того, мы также имеем опыт работы на региональном уровне. Вот то, что обсуждалось в предыдущие 2 дня, в том числе, как вы знаете, в прошлом году странами Центральной Азии была согласована региональная стратегия по адаптации к изменению климата в Центральной Азии. И данная стратегия, она разрабатывалась странами 2 года при нашей поддержке. И основная задача GIZ здесь составляла в том, чтобы мы представили площадку для того, чтобы страны могли найти взаимопонимание, найти общие положения в этой стратегии. Процесс был достаточно сложный, длился 2 года. Обычно мы формируем официально региональные рабочие группы. Это официальные представители от стран, номинированные через Министерство иностранных дел. То есть это уполномоченные лица, которые имеют полномочия принимать те или иные решения и согласовывать определенные положения в рамках, в данном случае, регионального документа. И что интересно, в данном документе, как подчеркивали тоже выступающие вчера и позавчера, некоторые страны иногда шли на компромисс, для достижения компромисса просто снимали свои предложения. И здесь очень важна роль международных организаций по опыту GIZ именно с точки зрения фасилитации этого процесса. То есть представить независимую площадку и независимую экспертизу для разрешения тех или иных вопросов, которые между странами возникают. Они обязательно возникают, поскольку в любом случае на национальном уровне приоритеты хоть и совпадают, но зачастую разные, в том числе в вопросах деградации земли. Но вот что касается региональной стратегии по адаптации, важно отметить, что в этой стратегии отмечены не просто общие требования, которые страны хотели бы реализовать и создать механизм сотрудничества по совместной работе по адаптации, но прежде всего там рассматривается вопрос подготовки и разработки финансового механизма сотрудничества стран по реализации совместных проектов, софинансирования со старых стран и международных партнеров тех или иных именно региональных проектов. Потому что у нас есть опыт хороший, когда мы работаем на национальном уровне, процедуры прописаны, это все более-менее ясно, но на региональном уровне крайне сложно, вот этот финансовый механизм, он сложен. И каждый раз международные финансовые институты, международные партнеры ищут разные возможности и пути реализации совместных региональных проектов. В данном случае в региональной стратегии страны утвердили не только основные мероприятия, которые они планируют сделать, но прежде всего там были согласованы приоритетные направления работы стран, в которые вошли не только вода, здравоохранение, другие сектора экономики, но в том числе вопрос деградации земли, тоже как один из приоритетов в стратегии указан. И с этой точки зрения мы надеемся, что другие международные партнеры, такие как Всемирный банк, ФАО, организации ООН различные, также примут участие в реализации данной стратегии. Стратегия рассчитана до 30 года, она сейчас является таким общим универсальным рамочным документом для всех стран Центральной Азии, где обозначены общие приоритеты, как я сказал. И, в принципе, любой из международных партнеров совместно с региональной рабочей группой, уполномоченными лицами от стран, может выбрать свою зону, в которой он может работать, для того, чтобы избежать дублирования прежде всего, повысить мультипликативный эффект от совместной работы. И самое важное, эти вещи уже согласованы со странами. То есть это политическая платформа, которая уже создана, которая странами принята, и в рамках которой страны готовы работать и поддерживать общую работу. С этой точки зрения GIZ будет продолжать при финансовой поддержке Министерства иностранных дел Германии поддержку в реализации стратегии как таковой. И мы, конечно, будем поддерживать работу региональной рабочей группы и секретариата в дальнейшем этой стратегии. И мы очень рассчитываем, что другие международные партнеры, международные организации включатся в эту работу более интенсивно и смогут вместе со странами на этой площадке в рамках этой стратегии определенные вещи, приоритеты согласовать и в дальнейшем их реализовывать совместно и, я надеюсь, очень эффективно и успешно. Вот коротко о том, что делает GIZ. Работ, конечно, очень много, но я постарался коротко. Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much, Alexander. I'm thinking that if there is one takeaway for me out of this conference is actually that I personally commit to read this regional adaptation strategy because I heard so much about it and I really want to read it and to know what it is. So that's my commitment out of this conference. And also, I think that your experience on bringing the countries together is going to be extremely important for our resilient regional program. You heard the 4 countries today explaining a little bit. We have an important regional component which is basically managed by CAREC, and I'm sure that I want to really have connections between the experience that you had with all this work and what we are going to do with CAREC. So that's a sort of another, promise on our side as managers from the World Bank, that this point of facilitating and making the platform available, that we really learn from your experience, Alexander. So now let me move. When we talk about partners, we have looked at the bilaterals, UN, etc., but we cannot forget the academic sector. So let me ask to Ben Geranis, professor at the University of Central Asia, to give us 2 minutes about his experience on working on the Resilient program for some innovative work that we're doing with the university. Over to you, Ben.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Paula, for this opportunity. I do my best in these 2 minutes to highlight importance of education at different levels and share with audiences my experience working with Resilient very closely last 4 years on multiple projects. I would start with highlighting the importance of education. So all of us agree on importance of climate change. It's real. We need to tackle and adapt to changing climate and also mitigate changing climate. And we all agree, again, we need instruments and tools to tackle that complex issue. And we heard about discussion about finance. I would like to add 2 more elements to that basically tools which we need to tackle climate change in general. So one is knowledge, which is created by universities through research. So yesterday, one colleague mentioned the share of Central Asian journal published papers is less than 1% to climate change topic. And it was shocking for me as an academic to hear that. Another requirements for tackling climate change is human resources. So we need to educate and train future generations, future managers, government workers, to be equipped with necessary tools and knowledge to be able to make right decisions. So I would like to highlight here the importance of education at different levels, starting from high school and then university level. So we had a chance and some support from Resilient program of World Bank to pilot 2 interesting, unique studies in Central Asia. We started in Tajikistan as a first feasibility study to try and test and see if we run some short-term workshops and education at higher schools, how we can improve the knowledge on climate change and environmental issues at the school level. We implemented that in rural areas of Tajikistan at 10 selected schools by running one-day workshop and assessing high school students' knowledge, grades 7 to 11, before the workshop and after the workshop. And not surprisingly, the results was very promising. We find that by running just simple one-day workshop, we can enhance and increase basic knowledge on climate change of students by 30%. So again, we expanded that project to 4 countries. The second phase, which we just finishing this week by basically submitting the report to World Bank. We basically run the same project in 4 countries by having 2 days workshop and working with local universities and piloting same approach in 20 schools in 4 countries. And by educating around 700 youth, grades 7 to 11, and again, results was same. We could enhance understanding of school students by running even short 2 days workshop. So I will finish my talk by urging all government departments and aid organizations to putting, a part of their focus on education and working with educational system of Central Asian countries and investing in the future generations to be learned and to, learn and to have necessary tools to be able to tackle climate change. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ben. I think that we should really, work with the youth because they should not be passive receivers of climate change, but they should become entrepreneur of the changes that are needed, and that will give them jobs and will give them hope. So I think that's very important, and we need to change the curriculum in schools so that these issues are tackled. And I actually hope that through the Resilient program, all my project coordinators of the different PIU will include these elements of working with schools in really trying to change and have the young people to take this challenge in their hands. And last intervention, if you want, and then we need to close. I don't know if so we need to have also someone from the private sector, and I would like to call on Marta Roca Colel, Principal Engineer, Flood and Water Management of HR One Link Ford. Marta, are you online?
Yes, I am. Hi.
Yes, Marta, can I ask you to reduce your presentation to only 5 minutes maximum, because we are really running very late.
Yeah, sure.
So just key points, key results. We don't need to go into the very details. So she's going to give us a presentation of the issues of sedimentation for a very important water reservoir in Tajikistan, Nurek case studies. Over to you, Marta.
Yes, just checking. Are you seeing my
We do.
my slides?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Then, yeah, you already mentioned the issues of sedimentation in reservoirs. Sorry. Let's talk about the Nurek Reservoir in Tajikistan on the Bashk River. It's a very long reservoir and very deep and relatively narrow. And as Paula mentioned before, there is the Nurek Reservoir and Rogun Dam and Reservoir is upstream. So here you can see a view of the reservoir, and here you can see the dam. The Nurek Dam is one of the tallest in the world, and it was built in the 60s, 70s, and is a very important power installation. It produces 2/3 of the national electricity in Tajikistan. So, very briefly, which are the challenges of sedimentation in the world? We are talking about 8,000 cubic kilometers of storage in the wall that is being lost every year, 1%. And this causes not just the reduction in storage, in the volume of water that you can have in your reservoir, but also blockage of outlets, deterioration of the turbines, and of course, all the impacts downstream and upstream. So we are in Central Asia, but I just wanted to put an example of this type of problems that are happening all around the world. And this is from Malawi in Africa, where we did the study of land degradation and the possible impacts in a reservoir. And what we saw is that in the last 20 years, there has been a loss of the tree cover of 20%. And this has a direct impact on the sediment that is arriving to the reservoir, and it can increase 25% the sediment arriving to the reservoir just because of this degradation, land degradation. So going back to Nurek, a few years ago, we did study with involvement of the World Bank and the national power company in Tajikistan that had several tasks. And as it was mentioned before in this session, the importance of monitoring. And I just wanted to show you some slides of the bathymetric survey that it was done in the reservoir, just to be able to predict what's going to happen, to manage. It's important to have data, real data, and to monitor. And here you see the equipment that you install in the vessels and the cross sections that we cover along the reservoir, and we were able to create a digital elevation model of the reservoir that we then use in our simulations. This is just an example of collecting information, but we also took samples of soils and we analyzed the laboratory. And I have to say that this project also had as a very important component the training. So all the monitoring activities, cross-section surveys, taking of samples involve the staff in Nurek to train them so they could be able to continue this type of work in the future. And as part of the project, a laboratory was installed at Nurek just to be able to analyze the samples. So with all this information, what we did, we use our numerical models, our in-house RESAS model, to predict, to see what could happen in Nurek. So it's about knowing how much storage you will lose, how much sediment will pass through the turbines, how this delta of sediment that is depositing in the reservoir will advance. And this helps to set up these sediment management strategies for the future. Any numerical model involves setting up the model, calibrating it, and then making these predictions. And here, just to a few images of figures, just showing the importance of calibration and how this data that was collected, all this data that is collected in all these monitoring campaigns is so useful to calibrate the numerical models and be able to predict, make better predictions in the future. So you can see on the left figure, this typical shape of the sediment depositing in a reservoir that creates this kind of delta that is reaching and approaching towards the dam. So here, what I'm showing you is a simulation. So the dam is on the left and the gray area is the sediment that is depositing in the reservoir. The water level, here we are seeing years that are passing, and the water level is changing, is moving, is going up and down during the year. And what has happened at Nurek is that in these more or less 42 years when we did the study, the reservoir had lost 33% of its capacity because of deposition of sediment. I want to mention that in Nurek, it's really important one special physical process that is the turbidity density currents. You can see, hopefully you can see in the picture the water, and you can see an area that is more bluish than clear water, but then you can see this brown area. What happens is that a lot of sediment flow with a very dense concentration of sediment comes into the reservoir, plunge down and travels down the sediment. This is important because we can help to release the sediments in the reservoir if this turbidity density flow, when arrives to the dam, we open the gates and we leave the flow to pass through. So it was very important in the particular case of Noreg to be able to simulate as well this turbidity density current in our models to incorporate that. Just very briefly, some future scenarios that were tested with the numerical models, we always have to study these do-nothing options. What would happen if we do nothing? And you can see on the left image, the do-nothing is this red line that it goes from the blue line that is marking the 2015 bathymetry. The reservoir just fills up with sediment if we do nothing. If we do venting of sediments, there is a bit of reduction, but after 75 years, the reservoir will be quite full. And another option that was studied is what would be the influence of Rogun Dam upstream. And of course, what happens is that the Rogun is blocking most of the sediment that is going to Nureg. So what happens is that with Rogun, the sedimentation at Nureg just decreases exponentially. There is still a bit of sedimentation because of the sediment that it's coming from the encatchment between Rogun and Nureg, but it really decreases the amount of sediment. And just to mention an ongoing land degradation study that we are doing in Central Asia, and one of the pilot sites is the Nureg-Rogun catchment. And I just wanted to highlight some preliminary results. As we are saying all along the session, the importance of the changes in land use and climate change in the sediment flowing into the reservoirs and in land degradation. And what's happening, what we are seeing right now is that there is a high decrease of melting of glaciers. So there is a lot of change of glacier melting, and that is being converted in bare land. And also a spare vegetation is being lost. There are some gains of other types of land use, but with all these studies, we can see where the hot spots where land degradation is happening, so we could really just tailor our sediment management strategies. So this has been very quick, but I just wanted some final remarks, just reminding the importance of considering sediment management strategies from the very beginning. When we plan a dam, we also need to start planning on managing sediments. In Central Asia, land degradation is an issue, and in general, there is a high sediment coming into the rivers and into the reservoirs. Of course, sediments have an impact, not only on the loss of storage, but also on the energy production and the impacts on the dam operation. And the importance of all the monitoring campaigns and, of course, the numerical studies as well, just to try to assess which are the best strategies to manage sediment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marta. Excellent report. And by the way, after this, we have also done an additional piece of work. And we saw that if you add trees to the Rogun watershed, you can decrease sedimentation of about 6–7%. And so, you know, the role of landscape restoration, even to reduce sedimentation is high, is important. So let me come to closure of this panel and thanking everybody. Just 2 words. Basically, landscape restoration is important to increase the resilience of people. We have seen how much migration and how much insecurity there is in the border areas. So it's important to do for that reason. It's important because it creates jobs. My colleague Ashwarachu talked about the Green Wager program, Abdul Wakid about small and medium enterprises related to natural resources and landscape restoration. So it creates jobs. It's important because we need to focus on regional collaboration. It's a regional issues, and so all the experience that GIZ shared with us. We need good examples of projects like the ones that FAO has and that the guidelines that UNICE mentioned. So we need to work on that. But we also need to work on educations and with schools, because that's the future, and it's the most sustainable way to actually look at the resilience of ecosystems, of people, and of the infrastructure of Central Asia. So thank you very much for staying with us, and have a good lunch.